Question number 15. We're given a quadratic equation over here, and this question is, what are the solutions for x? So recall that a standard form for a quadratic equation is f of x equals a times x squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are coefficients, and the variable is x, where we have x squared is a quadratic term, bx is the linear term or the first degree term, and c is the constant or the 0th degree term. Now, we have the quadratic formula for when an equation, quadratic expression is equal to 0. We can solve for what the zeros are for this equation by the quadratic formula, which is given by negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. What's given to us in our problem over here is x squared minus k over 2x equals 2p. And we can make this look like this one, right? It's equal to 0 by bringing 2p to the other side here. So that would be x squared minus k over 2x. And to bring 2p to the other side, we subtract from both sides. So minus 2p. And 2p minus 2p is just 0, so that's equal to 0. And the reason why I want to do that is so that we can use this quadratic formula over here when we have a quadratic expression equal to 0, which we have, a quadratic expression equal to 0. We can use this setup here. So, first let's go ahead and determine what is A, what is B, what is C. What are the coefficients of each one here? Where we have no number being multiplied to x squared here, actually no visible number being multiplied to x squared here, our A constant will be equal to 1, because 1 times x squared is still just x squared. Our B constant, what's being multiplied to x, is negative k over 2. Our C, or the constant value, is the last one here, negative 2p. So to use this formula, it's really just plugging in. So x is going to be equal to, I'm going to write it down here, x is going to be equal to negative b. So the negative of negative k over 2 is just k over 2. So k over 2 plus or minus the square of negative k over 2. So that's going to be k squared over 2 squared. What's 2 squared? 4. Okay. Minus 4 times a, which is 1. 4 times 1 is just 4. I'll write it down anyway. Times c, which is negative 2p. All right, I'm following this formula up here. All divided by 2 times a. A is 1. So to further do this, let's go ahead and scoot things up. Here we have k over 2 plus or minus k squared divided by 4. Same thing, can't simplify that. Here we can simplify negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times negative 2p. Negative times negative is positive, so I'm going to have plus 4 times 2 is 8 times p. All divided by 2 times 1 is 2. Okay. Almost done. Lastly, we can go ahead and apply this dividing by 2 on both of these two terms. So we're going to have k over 2 divided by 2 plus or minus k squared over 4 plus 8p. We cannot simplify that. All over 2. And from there, let's go ahead and take a look at the answers. Can we make a decision on which one to choose based on this that we have? We can still simplify this, but let's say just using what we have over here, can we choose any of these options? well, let's go ahead and, if you can, go ahead. If not, let's go ahead and further simplify this. K over 2 divided by 2 is the same thing as, so I'm going to do this over here. That's the same thing as K over 2 times 1/2. Because to divide by 2 is the same thing as to multiply times 1/2. So this is going to be K times 1, which is K, 2 times 2, which is 4. So K over 4. Plus or minus. Now, if we look over here in our answers, we see that none of the K's in the radical has a dividing by 4. That's because 4 is a perfect square, and we can take the square root of a perfect square. The square root of 1 over 4 is 1 over 2. So this would be, we actually can factor out a 4 here. So if I take this and factor out 4, so this would be I'm sorry, if I factor out a 1 over 4 from here, K squared over 4 divided by 1/4 is just K squared. 8 divided by 1/4 is, I'll do that here, 8 divided by 1/4 is the same thing as multiplying both top and bottom times 4, so this will be canceled out. And we had 8 times 4, which is 32. And we would have K squared plus 32P. 32P. Boy, it's a long problem. Okay. Well, if you're still watching, might as well finish. Alrighty, let's go ahead and see what we have here. We have the square root of 1/4 here. I'm going to just write this whole thing. Square root of 1/4 times K squared plus 32P all over 2. Alright, so we have here K over 4, and if we look at the options over here, we only have 2 options, either A or B that has K over 4. And between those two, the only difference is the 2P or the 32P. Now I know we're not quite done with the problem yet, but we can already see that we have a 32P, so we will have to keep that. If you want to see the rest of the problem, go ahead and keep watching. Square root of 1/4. Here, if we take the square root of 1/4, that would be 1 over 2. Right? And then we can't take the square root of the rest of this, so we keep it in the radical. K squared plus 32P, all divided by 2. But just like we said earlier, we can go ahead and multiply times 1/2, and 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. So this would be K over 4 plus or minus 1/4, or what we have over here, K squared plus 32P, all divided by 4. And here is our final simplification of what we started with. Okay. And that leaves us with one answer, and that is option D. And finally, we're done.